the door and come here. A Song of Ice and Fire podcast with heavy leanings towards our two favorite characters, Jamie and Brienne. Hey everyone, I'm Guile, and you can find me. I was gonna say I tweet at Blue Sky. I suppose a lot of people say that. I'm on Blue Sky as Guile and Subterfuge, and today I'm joined by Kama.
I'm Kama, and you can find me at Kama Splice on Blue Sky.
And Lot.
Hi there, I'm Lot. You can't find me nowhere.
And today we are covering part 2 of the Hedge Knight from Knight of the Seven Kingdoms. So, spoilers for pretty much everything except, ironically enough, the TV series A Knight of Seven Kingdoms. We don't know. So we pick back up with day 1 of the tourney, and Dunk is taking Egg to the tourney, and basically, as we described in the first part, the way that this tourney is set up is that there's 5 champions that are preset, and then everyone else can pick one of those champions to challenge, and if they win, then they're the champion, but then the next people can try to challenge them. So when everyone's done, the last 5 guys standing as champions are champions of the tourney. And the way that it's set up is that like the higher ranked people get to go first. But to start with, Lord Ashford's 2 sons are 2 of the champions. Leo Tyrell is one of the champions. Someone who I'm forgetting. It's Leo Tyrell, Ashford's 2 sons. It's Sir Humphrey Hardying, which is interesting from the, maybe we'll get into it at some point, the idea of like the foreshadowing of the Ashford tourney and Sansa's suitors. So Sir Humphrey, and then the last champion is Prince Valar, who is Baelor Breakspear's oldest son and his heir. So potentially King of the Seven Kingdoms. And like I said, pretty much the cream of the crop get to go first. So we see like Sir Daemon Lannister, his son Sir Tybalt, Sir Tully, all of the Lionel Baratheon, who they call the Laughing Storm. These guys are going up first, and like Lord Ashford's sons lose pretty early on, but like they put up a pretty good fight against like these like super high level guys. So like Lord Ashford's pretty stoked that his kids like showed up well enough. Sir Humphrey's doing pretty well. I think Leo gets beat by maybe the Laughing Storm fairly early on. And what Dunk slowly starts to realize is that kind of the shitty guys are choosing Valor because Valor's not that good, I think. And so you can kind of start to see Dunk's strategy maybe starting to play out. Like he's thinking like, if I want to be a champion, maybe I'm going to pick Valor because I don't have a shot against the other guys. And like, he's not politically aware enough to realize like that would probably also be frowned upon. But, that's kind of what he's thinking. They sounds like they have some amazing matches. Like there's the Battle of the Humphreys that goes on and on. There's this old knight, Sir Royce, and he lost an eye in some prior tourney, and he gets his helm knocked off but refuses to replace it. So here's a dude that lost his eye in a tourney to splinters, and he's going against someone without any protection from splinters. So
Dumb or brave? Maybe both.
a little bit of both, right? And like there's this great match between like a Malister and a Karen that is, going on. And like the Karen's also like a minstrel. So like he sounds great. He loses ultimately, but sounds like super cool. And Egg knows all of this shit about everyone, so Dunk is kind of getting that intel from him. He's like, when the next round of people come up, he's like, who's like the worst of the guys challenging? And it's always the one who's Valor's foe. And Egg is very familiar with it. He will call him Valor instead of Prince Valor, for example, which, ooh, suspicion. So eventually, there's all these challenges. It sounds like a great time, like actually like super action packed, like they all go at the same time. So it sounds like, frankly, like lots of fun. Was there anyone that you guys were? Then they talk about like how Lionel Baratheon is like laughing during his matches, especially if they're not like super challenging. He's just laughing, having like a super great time, and like, oh, this is like what Bobby B wanted to be, right? Like just jousting, having fun. Like it sounds like pretty awesome. Like nothing, nothing too serious has happened. It just, seems great. Was there anyone that you guys were like, oh, I like this guy? Anyone you were rooting for?
No, honestly, I was more like, there's too many of these guys. Like, uh, I'm always in that headspace though. Like why do I need this all in this much detail? But I'm just like throwing damp water on everything. So maybe, Mama, how about you?
We did have a question that I guess could apply, which is from Buck O'Hare from the Discord, who asks, which is your favorite non-dunk knight in the book?
I mean, in the whole book, I mean, how is it not Baylor?
Yeah, I would go with Baylor.
And other than him, I feel like Raymond Fossoway is like in the reread. And I mean, he's in the reread. Raymond Fossoway is the one I was like, oh, I kind of forgot about him, and I love him. But like, I don't know what versions of this. I assume you guys have illustrations in the versions, right?
Yeah, the one that I just bought because I couldn't find my freaking book. Yeah, I have that right now.
There's a picture of one of the Targs like at their like, in his chair, and he's got like this enormous glass of wine that he's drinking as he's just lounging, Like he has this silver goblet from time to time that he raises. And I mean, it's like this enormous silver goblet, and he just looks like such a douchebag, And I don't think that he is necessarily. I think again, this is all propaganda, as we'll see, in the Mystery Night. It's propaganda to make him look good because like the only thing people talk about with him is like, oh, Valor, I've heard he's not as good as his dad. So like, they're kind of either trying to pump up his like confidence or at least get him some recognition so it's not like, oh, he sucks. Because I think like that is the perception, is like he's just lackluster. And the way he's lounging in this picture does not like make me feel like he's not lackluster.
There's a lot. There's so much with these characters and the color and the like. You get the sense that this is legend, right? This is
Oh yeah.
This is where legends are made, literally.
Yeah. And I mean, back to like the whole idea, in our last episode, we talked about the tournament as like the Olympics. And I mean, I think you have to think of it in those terms to understand like how important it would be to be a champion of an event like this for someone like Dunk. But even, for any of these nights, I think like it is a big deal to be a champion, like just like Olympic level. One thing is, Egg is actually like sitting on Dunk's shoulders this whole time watching, which again, like as a short person, screw you. I hope you're in the back. And not in front of me. They would totally be in front of me.
Not only a tall person in front of you, but with a kid on their shoulder.
With a kid on their shoulders, yeah.
On the reread of this, it was kind of fun to kind of, when you do a reread, it's always like you catch up on little moments like the legs tightening around his neck, and you know why he's excited or
Yeah.
who he is cheering for or who he isn't cheering for and why. So that was kind of cool.
So near the end of the day, that's exactly what happens. There's like we've kind of gotten through the big names more or less, but then there's this new entry late in the day. And it's, Prince Aerion Brightflame, a herald called, of the Red Keep of King's Landing, son of Maker, Prince of Summerhall of House Targaryen, grandson to Daeron the Good, the second of his name, King of the Andals, the Ronar, and the First Men, and Lord of the Seven Kingdoms. And, Aerion bore a three-headed dragon on his shield, but it was rendered in colors much more vivid than Valor's. One head was orange, one yellow, one red, and the flames they breathed had the sheen of gold leaf. His surcoat was a swirl of smoke and fire, woven together, and his blackened helm was surmounted by a crest of red enamel flames. So, he comes in like fucking rock star, right? That's all you can think is like, oh, holy shit, who's this dude?
He is one of many of the George periodically writes these incredible descriptions of attire, and you're like, whoa, it's a lot of
Yeah,
look.
yeah, a lot of look, indeed. Like, he is definitely like heavy metal rock god, really.
Yeah, electric guitars are like just
Oh
sing.
yeah. Like, I just picture, like, in remember Bill and Ted's Excellent? Like, they'd always have that little
Of
guitar.
course.
That's him. He's totally that. He is that guy. And he rides in and he like barely dips his lands to Baylor. Like, he definitely thinks he's like, he thinks he's absolutely the shit. And he goes to Valor's tent, and I think everyone thinks that that's who he's going to challenge. But then he goes to Sir Humphrey Harding, who's been like the champion this whole time. So he's like beaten a shit ton of guys, right? And he's
Yeah.
like, "It's your time to face the dragon." Like, oh Christ, like that kind of crap. Um, and then they're they're running at each other, and Egg's legs tighten around Dunk, and he's like, kill him, he's right there, kill him. And Dunk doesn't know which knight he was shouting to. And I think we find out that obviously he's not rooting for Aerion. And what Aerion does is he moves his lance down at the last minute and strikes Sir Humphrey's horse. Totally on purpose. And the horse crashes and lands on Sir Humphrey's sort of caught in the stirrup, and the horse falls on him. And the horse is like dying horribly. And even when that's happening, Arian dismounts, and he he like goes after Humphrey. And they're like, what the hell? Like, and Egg just can't, Egg can't stand it. Like, he thinks like, what if this happened? What if this happened to basically his Aryan squires and one of Sir Humphrey's squires had to hold him back from like going after Sir Humphrey, like while he's laying under his dying horse. So like, thanks, Aaron, you piece of crap. And, Dunk is horrified. Egg is like, his eyes are red. He's like crying basically. And, Dunk tells him like, if you're going to be a squire, you're going to see some bad shit, unfortunately. And he's like, I didn't see an accident. He meant to do it, and you know it. And, Dunk's like, oh no, he's not going to give in to that. He kind of tells like, no, I'm sure it was an accident. Let's get out of here basically. So just horrible. Arian is horrible, obviously. And just, like just a piece of crap, right? So they're kind of walking around, and they're, watch the puppeters a little bit, but then someone calls Dunk's name, and it's Raymond Fossoway. So um they introduce Dunk, and he invites them to their, he basically invites them to dinner, more or less. And we find out that Lord Ashford actually declared that Sir Humphrey won that tilt and gave him Arian's horse. But his leg is broken in two places. And like Baylor sent his own master to attend to him and stuff. And they're deciding like who's going to be champion in Sir Humphrey's place. And there might just be four only. And he's thinking like he really, if he wants to win, he really has to go against Valor, and he's a little afraid of that. Um, and he asked the Fossoways, and like, they're gonna go against Tybalt Lannister, is what Stefan, the older Fossoway cousin, that's who he thinks he's gonna, because he thinks he's like the weakest of the remaining ones other than Valor. And you know, Dunk's trying to get away from them. Like he's just really not comfortable in this social situation. And you know, and Raymond Fossoway just seems like generally speaking pretty harmless. And he is just trying to make conversation and be nice, but they're like talking about how horrible Aerion is and like, oh, thank God he's like way down in the line of succession. And Raymond agrees that um Aerion meant to do it, but that if his father had been there, he wouldn't have. And we find out that he's searching for his sons who are still missing. And we get a little, just get a bit of exposition on Maker that he's the fourth son and that his sons are, his oldest is a drunk and Aerion is, horrible as we've seen. And the third was so unpromising that they gave him to the Citadel, which is funny since we know that that's Aemon.
Get thee to the Citadel.
And then they're interrupted by Egg. He runs in and he says that they're hurting her and that they're hurting the puppet girl. And Arion's hurting the puppet girl. And Dunk is gonna go run, but Raymond's like, he's a prince of the blood, dude. And but I mean, once Dunk sees it, he sees him like sees the puppeteer stall has been destroyed and stuff. And Arian is twisting Tansel's, her arm, and she's on her knees, and I mean, he's gonna break her fingers, and that just like he loses his shit, right? So he's punching him, and then he's kicking him in the face, and like he's gonna kick him to death, basically, and then people come on him and stop him from doing any more. But basically, Arian's like, you loosed my tooth, we're gonna start by breaking all of your teeth, and we're gonna kill you. And
No, it was
all of
perfect,
this,
like perfectly laid out, just like how it was just a natural reaction. There was no thinking. There was just,
right?
this is wrong. I'm jumping in there and I'm beating the pulp out of this guy. He's not even like, he's not like the prince, none of that factors in.
Yeah.
And they're like, get a hammer and break all of his teeth, and then let's cut him up and show him his entrails. So not good for Dunk
He's a
here.
great guy. One of the
Yeah,
best.
Yeah, no, the fact
and
too, like he's doing this, and where is everybody else? Right? It's like a
right.
complete.
Well, they're afraid of them, like they're look, we see what's happened to the puppeteers whose crime was like having a little fight with a dragon that he took offense to.
Yeah.
And then then Egg yells, don't, no, don't hurt him. And Dunk is like, run away, they're gonna hurt you, like get the hell out of here. And Egg says, if they do, they'll answer to my father and my uncle. And he tells like the men with Aerion, like, do what I say. And then they stop holding they stop it. And we see that, like, I mean, Raymond Fossoway rolls in and he's wearing his armor, which is so interesting. Like, he was gonna, like, what was he gonna do? Like, was he thinking he was gonna come in and rescue Dunk? I mean, maybe. Like, we find out later, like, he's a good, he's like a good kid, but like, yeah, he comes in like ready to fuck some stuff up. Um, and like other men at our, like a bunch of the Fossoway men. So like they were coming in to like, maybe try to, or maybe even just try to help the puppeteers if it wasn't too late. Um, and Arian just looks at Egg and is like, just says, what happened to your hair? And Egg says, I cut it off, brother, I didn't want to look like you. And that is how part 2 of our Hedge Knight recap goes. So a short one, but like a heck of a lot of action.
We did have a couple questions. Almost a Prayer on Discord asks, how well do you think George R.R. Martin handles walking the line of giving the small folk a POV via Dunk, while his story is intricably linked to highborn shenanigans? I think that's why it works so well, actually. is
Yeah,
because for
because
once,
well, you go ahead and then I'll go. Yeah, sorry.
well, I mean, even in like the series, I mean, other than let's say Davos, who's, not born, he's born a member of the small folk and he's raised up, but like I think all of the POVs, except maybe a couple of like epilogue or prologue characters who get killed, there are all these highborn people, or they're gentry or whatever the equivalent is. Whereas I think Dunk is, he's a normal dude. Well, not normal, but you know what I mean? Like he's not coming at this with like, long lines of illustrious ancestors. I think that's why it really works.
Yeah, I mean, the story is that classic, like start from the bottom, going to the top, that journey. Um, and we wouldn't get any other kind of considerations for the small folk if anybody else had been the first, point, the point of view had been from anyone else.
We also had a question from I Dream of Spring on the Discord who asks, we could ask this at any point, but I think it makes sense here given that we've just met a really interesting Targaryen, not a great one, but an interesting guy. Does reading this novella have any effect on your opinion of Targaryens? I will start by saying that Egg is my favorite of the Targs. And I mean, other than a couple of characters here, there's really, well, I think Baelor Breakspear is pretty cool, but I really don't care about them in general.
Care about them. I feel, someone like Darren is really like kind of tragic to me because, he's 18 years old. He is a drunk, but like I think he's a drunk because he has prophetic dreams that freak him the fuck out, and that's how he's dealing with it. And, like that's a thing that Targs have had. And,
And he
that's
doesn't look like any of them either.
right, right. He doesn't really look, and just like how sad for him. And then just like the fact that they have to be stereotyped like they're the Spice Girls. Well, one son is great. One son's sickly. One son is book it,
Yeah.
like okay, that's a little weird. Like
I like him a lot too, actually. He's very he's funny. Like when at that point when he was, I don't know if we're here yet in the story. I guess we're probably not. This might be for the next
yeah,
episode.
about the apples.
Well, yeah, and the like beating him up and just like, I'm gonna probably just lie down, so you could punch me a bit, but I'll just be on the ground
Yeah,
basically.
like he's like he has his own demons that are entirely separate you know from everyone else. And I mean, like how many times like have there been characters and stories that can see the future, and it's like it's never like a happy gift. Like think of like,
Right.
Cassandra, like these kind, like no, it sucks for all of them. I feel like all of the time to know what's going to happen in the future.
Yeah. I mean, it's not really a gift. I mean, at all. Um, I mean, I guess I care about them more in this particular the collection of Duncan Egg books than I do in other places. They feel more naturally integrated into the world. I find all of the endless, like, God, that stupid book, the encyclopedia, whatever the hell it was,
Oh, the world of ice and fire.
yeah, like I don't give a shit about who has what color hair and what shade of
Yeah.
Targaryen. That
So
stuff just
how about
it's separate, it's legend, whereas here it feels they feel like more like real characters, and I do appreciate that more.
So, since we made it through that first day pretty quick, how about we just keep going on this episode for a little bit? We'll
Sure.
we'll be nimble, like nimble Dick. Brienne.
Big dick energy.
Yeah. So, the next day dawns and we find out that Dunk's been imprisoned in the castle, and Egg comes to see him, and he says, his uncle, um, and brings him food because Dunk is super hungry because like he's a growing boy, and he says his uncle has told him that he has to come beg for forgiveness for deceiving him, and Dunk's like, oh, your uncle, you mean Prince Baylor? Like, and Dunk's and Egg's just like, I never meant to lie, I just really wanted to come to the tourney. And Dunk kind of gets that, like, he was supposed to squire for Darren in the tourney, and Darren didn't want to do it. And Darren didn't want to be in the tourney, so Dunk basically took his chance, or Egg, sorry, took his chance with Dunk. But Darren meant for them to hide until the tourney was over, which is great. Like, what's your plan? We're just gonna hide. And he just thought it was like his only way to be in the tourney. And they kind of have this little moment where, like, well, we're both from King's Landing, like finding their commonalities, which is very sweet. And Dunk asks if he has to call him my lord, and Egg's like, at court, yeah, but other times you can just keep calling me Egg. And we find, then Dunk has to go talk to Baylor. Baylor kind of gives him the lowdown that he's fucked. Like, basically, he wants to know how good of a knight Dunk is, because his options are a trial, which he's going to be found guilty in, and he's going to lose like a hand and a foot. Because Maker's super mad because of what Aerion did, and then we find out that Darren lied and said that Dunk like stole Egg away as well. So his really only hope is a trial by combat. Otherwise, he's going to get screwed. And he says, Baylor's like, my dad's like 100 leagues away, so like it's I can help you a bit, but I can't like completely make this go away, more or less. Like, you're kind of you're screwed. So then, unfortunately, we find out that it's not just going to be a trial by combat, which Dunk, maybe could have a shot at, but it's a trial by 7. And, that's what Aerion wants. And Maker's like, oh, because you don't think you can beat this guy on his own, which, of course, that's why. But he kind of spins it like, oh, he wronged, Darren too, because he took Egg from him. So, like, both of us have to be able to get our vengeance against him. And Dunk's like, as the readers are, I think, are like, what the heck's a trial by 7? And it's the seldom used ancient rites where basically, if you can't get 6 people to fight with you, you're kind of guilty then, is right. Like,
I think there's like somebody drops a line that it hasn't like happened in 100 years, over 100 years. Like, nobody does this anymore.
right. And Maker's really cold here. He's basically like, well, if you can't get 6 people, I guess like that the gods are finding you guilty. And Dunk is like, feels super, they let him go. And he feels super alone, and he's like, it's almost halfway through the night, and at dawn he's gonna be dead, basically. And he's kind of wandering around, more or less. And but he hears a horse, and he somehow knows that it's Thunder. And it turns out that Thunder and Chestnut are being put up with the Fossoways. And like, kind of everyone knows what's going on, that there's this trial by combat. And Raymond's kind of like, dude, this Raymond's very much like, dude. And Stefan's like, dude, it'll be, we'll find you. Like, we'll find you some guys to fight with you. Like, Stefan says, I'm gonna fight for you. Who else do you know? And Dunk's like, I literally know Manfred Denarian, who has already denied me. But they're like, no, we're gonna get 5 guys. Like, Stefan's like, I got more than 5 friends. Like, I'm gonna go and I'm gonna find them, and I'm gonna be like your hero. And Raymond's like, when Stefan leaves, Raymond's kind of like, I don't know. Like, maybe we need more options. Like, Stefan is like, full of talk, but he doesn't have like a sense that Stefan's really going to find anyone for him. But Egg turns up, and with him he brings Darren Targaryen. So we kind of meet a sober Darren who's like, really apologetic. Like he's basically like, you know, I'm like I had to say something when my dad wanted to know like how did I lose my little brother basically. And he just came up with this lie.
This is a douche thing to do, man. Like he
I mean,
obviously
at least it's an understandable douche thing to do in a way, though. It's like at least like, yeah, like legit, you did lose your little brother. Like that's terrible. Like you lost your little brother in the store. Basically, that's what happened.
And then you blame the clerk for
Yes. Yeah. I mean, that is exactly, exactly what's it. And he tells like Dunk, or he tells, Dunk that his maker is going to join the Seven, and he thinks it's the only way to redeem his son's honor. So I mean, he like that's the thing, like everyone knows this is bullshit, and they're going to kill each other or kill Dunk. I think is what they think. They're going to kill Dunk out of like bullshit just to redeem, yeah, just for a lie essentially.
yeah, super douche.
And Darren tells Dunk like, I'm gonna look gallant in the first charge, but if you could just like knock me down right away, I'll just lay down and stay out of it. So like, if you can find other guys, like I will not be a part of like bringing you down at this point. Like
What
clearly
a
he's
guy.
done enough. But like literally Dunk's going up against 3 Targaryens. Like so far we know it's like 3 members of the Kingsguard and 3 Targaryens.
which,
So
yeah.
that's yeah. And at this
Even if
point
you
Dunk
have the
has
chutzpah to think you can come to this tourney and turn it around and win or whatever, I mean, my God, when you hear that.
and you know Dunk's like, God, I have one guy, I have Stefan. And Egg's like, I can try to bring people too. And, Dunk's like, but I'm fighting your own brothers. And Egg's like, you're not going to hurt Darren. And, he's going to be fine. And he tells Dunk about how Aerion used to come to his bed and put his knife between his legs and say that, he was going to cut his dick off so he could be his sister and he could marry me. And that he threw his cat down the well and that, just like,
He's serving real Joffrey energy.
yeah. Yeah, and then Darren gets his Darren gets his great line, which is Egg has the truth of it. Arion's quite the monster. He thinks he's a dragon in human form. That's why he was so wroth at that puppet show. A pity he wasn't born a Fossoway. Then he'd think himself an apple and we'd all be a deal safer.
Yeah, it's funny.
And
So there,
then
he's my favorite Targaryen. Has
yeah.
that.
Well, and then he asked Dunk to walk alone with him. And this is this is going to be another, like, I promise all you listeners, this is going to be another point where you like Darren, because he tells Dunk, I dreamed of you, and tells him that, my dreams are true, and he's scared because he dreamed of Dunk and a dead dragon. And it had fallen on top of him, but Dunk was alive and the dragon was dead. And Darren doesn't quite know how to interpret the dream, but like he's like, I don't want to die, like I don't want it to be me, so please don't kill me, basically is what he's saying, like laying it all out there. And he's like, I know I'm doomed, but he's like, I know I'm doomed somehow, but like I'm not ready to die yet, which is like, oh Darren, God, like he's 18, like that's horrible. And then just to finish up this part, um, Dunk goes back through and he looks where the puppeteers were, but they were gone. But he runs into Steely Pate, the armorer, and he has the shield that Tanzel had painted. And it sounds like everyone knows the puppeteers have left for Dorne, But she's left the shield, and then Pate actually just went ahead and reinforced it and made it nicer. And it's it's as beautiful as as what he hoped. And he's like, oh God, I chose a falling star. Is that a mistake? And Pate's like, no, the tree's alive. Like, it's gonna be okay. And he just asked for a copper, and for you a copper. So he's given him a deal. And obviously we've seen Steely Pate's really not one for a deal. And it's getting close to dawn, and the stands are starting to get busy. But like, everyone's wishing Dunk good luck. And he's like, they're for me. What am I to them? And Pate says,
One of my favorite parts of this
yeah.
Yeah.
was
And
just like,
Pate just says, a knight who remembered his vows. And that's kind of, I think we'll end this part on that.
yeah, just
That
like
Dunkism.
the people rallying around him, and he's inspired like this shift in energy, and I don't know.
Yeah. Like, they're calling, like, he's definitely, like, again, everyone, it's just like this like ridiculous thing where everyone knows what the deal is. Cause I mean, I don't think Arion's reputation was unknown. And I mean, I'm sure what he did to Tanzel got around, and everyone knows that Dunk was totally in the right, and this is bullshit, and they're gonna kill this kid for, being a true knight. Sander Clegane would be like so pissed off about this.
Especially, and don't worry, I'm not going to get deep into anything, but the world in which we live now, when you have these moments where people are standing up for what's right, it means a lot,
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. And I mean, Dunk did not get to be a champion of the tourney, but I mean, he's the champion of the tourney at this point. This is kind of like I feel like we're going to end this part on the high point of the Navala well, one of the high points of the Navala, basically, before it all goes to hell, is, Dunk getting that recognition. Any other comments before we end this one?
I'm good.
Like and like and review us where you listen to your favorite podcasts. And you can reach us at closethedoorand@gmail.com. You can find us in the Jamie Brienne subreddit, on Blue Sky, all the places. And support us on Patreon. And with that, I am closing the door. Get out.